friend's friend was driving, and this is in Texas, near where he's at, early in the morning, and was on a back road and hit what she thought was a human being. And she, stopped the car, got out, and this thing was staring at her. And from what all the description was, it was a Mothman. And then after staring at her for, maybe a minute, it just kind of like flew away. And it put a dent in her car on the passenger or driver's side, actually, put a dent in the fender and the bumper. Now, the funny thing is, that happened a month later, supposedly. She's driving again in the same area, and she sees a person in the road, so she comes to a stop. And here, the same type of creature. She, gets out of the car. She looks at it. This thing has these eyes that are glowing, looking at her, and, then took off. Well, my question is, the smartest thing they should have done originally when she hit the whatever it was, should have took it in and had DNA swab done on that dent and fender and seen what creature it possibly could have been.
Wow. That's very interesting. Yes, someone would have the presence of mind to do that.
I wouldn't,
she
but I mean,
have any Native American ancestry, would she? You know?
I don't.
So many of the witnesses do. We had a lot of activity at our home during the Mothman sightings. We had something walking on our roof, and I was very little, but I wanted to go out at night and wait for it, but I was too afraid. And that happened up until about 1970. We had tremendous poltergeist activity at that time. It just sounded like a man. It sounded like someone had they had dropped out of a helicopter and landed on the roof. Then it would get very silent, for just a few, maybe a minute. And then it would begin to walk. It would walk around for a little while, and I would hear those footsteps squeaking on the roof. And then maybe after 10 minutes, it would leave. But we lived on a very high hill above our town, and also I saw up on the hillside we had a men in black. Saw two men in black. But I was a very small child. But Joe, I have no explanation of what the Mothman is. I did the movie Eyes of the Mothman, and the director hoped to get some answers through me. But, honestly, I don't really have any.
I'm trying to figure what they are, because, I think I mentioned to you last time you were on the show.
I wonder if she does have Native American ancestry, though, because the partridges had what that you call Blackfoot Saponi. I have Delaware Shawnee, and then Mr. Dernberger was Shawnee. So, and so many of the witnesses have some kind of Native American ancestry. So it makes you wonder if it doesn't go back to that time in some way.
I'm just wondering if it's going like through a portal or something back in time or something. And
portal definitely, or from the future. I almost think the men in black are from the future, and they too act like they're mimicking people. They don't. There's something really strange about them. They don't seem entirely human.
No, they don't. And I have my own theory on Men in Black, and and to me, I think they're probably, now you can laugh. Get ready for a good laugh. But I think we've been broadcasting for years now, TV signals, radio signals, and maybe some in Galaxy has picked it up, and that's how they think we dress, and that's the type of vehicles we drive. And maybe they're coming here to check up on us, aliens, let's face it. And so they think that's the way they should dress, like old cars, 20-year-old cars, suits,
they look new.
Yeah,
the cars look new.
To them it would, yes. And so they go driving up, and do their thing. They don't fit in right away because they're dressed like they're in the 60s or in the 50s. Their hair is slicked back. That's my feeling. Now, I've had some experts or so-called experts say, no, that's not it. But to me, it makes a lot of sense because I have a massive electronic background. And I know that, since the late 40s, we've been beaming out TV signals and stuff like that, which would take years to get out somewhere. So who knows what, picked it up.
I think, too, though, I did one thing at the Mothman Festival, and that Dark Man at the Crossroads. If you go back into Europe, they would see a man dressed in black at the crossroads. They'd think it was the devil. Some of them would think it was a vampire. So it seems like there might have been encounters even back then, but there was a flurry of them after the 1940s. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I don't know of any stories here in this area, West Virginia, that would have gone back before the 1960s. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, it seemed like it went on for a while, and then it faded out, and then it comes back, and not. I don't know.
It does, and there was something else that really strange that happened to me when I was little. It was probably a couple of years after the Mothman sighting, and my sister went to spend the night with one of her friends. We had the same room, and then off our room was an empty room where my mother, there was an old bed in there, and my mother would hide the Christmas packages. So at any rate, I wake up the next morning, and I'm just a little girl, okay? I'm like an 8-year-old or something. And I wake up, I'm completely naked, and there's a white sheet over my body like I'm dead or something. I mean, it's pulled up over my face, okay? So I jump up thinking, well, I'm crazy. I must have done that myself, So I jump up and I put my pajamas back on, and I never tell anyone this, but it was such a strange thing. And then years later, I was reading an account of another alien abduction of a man, the same thing. This was an adult, though, where he goes to sleep in his bed. Next morning, wakes up on the living room floor, completely naked and covered in a sheet. So, my field are ghosts and spirits, actually. This is not really something that really attracts me, as an interest in these things. But, and then, Mr. Dernberger, one of the reasons, this was the guy that had the encounter with Indrid Cold, okay, if you can remember that part of this mysterious part of the Mothman prophecies, which was basically, if you read the description of Indrid Cold, he's just basically a man in black. That's what Indrid Cold is. But he began to say he was traveling with the aliens. He would come up missing. And then once he said he was pregnant by the aliens. And that's when he got laughed out of town. He had a terrible time after he had a nervous breakdown, had terrible things happen to him. So he moved his family away to Cleveland for a number of years. Then he came back in the 1990s and then passed away. But whenever you bring up Mr. Dernberger's name, that was the guy that said he was pregnant by the aliens, It's just very weird.
Well, I will say this, Susan. I interview a lot of people that have been abducted, like Timothy Collin. I've had some major people out in the UFO field, Calvin Parker and all that stuff that claimed that they were abducted. The average person, if they didn't know what was going on, and you're taken aboard a spacecraft and you're on some type of whatever, and they're putting their hands everywhere on you and extracting stuff out of you. I have had women on here that claim that they had, eggs removed. I had guys say that they had sperm removed. Calvin Parker said that the alien tried to put her fingers down his throat and come out of his nose. And all of them have told me the same thing, that they felt that whatever these creatures are not for mankind. They're kind of evil. So could you...
That's true. Yeah. I mean, they didn't hurt. I mean, whatever happened to me, okay? I don't know what happened. Maybe I did get up and do that to myself. I don't think I did. I have no memory except going to sleep and then in the morning waking up in another room without any clothes on and a sheet tossed over me and pulled up over my head. That's all the information I have. But it's so bizarre. It's such a bizarre thing. I just never followed up on it. I hope it hasn't happened recently, and I don't know anything about it, but I doubt. But yeah, I mean, honestly, Rosemary was saying at one time, she seemed to think that West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and parts of New Jersey had the most paranormal activity of any of the states in the Union. They were just, and it might be because, it's that we have such dense woods, perhaps. Pennsylvania just pretty much just looks just like West Virginia. There's lots of woods and mountains and hills. She said that these states seem to have the most activity as any other state. And the reason, I don't know.
Well, how about Bigfoot sightings? You mentioned that forest and, mountains and all that stuff. Is there?
Well, there are many sightings here in West Virginia, and especially there's a lot of them across the river in Ohio, up near Salt Fork in Ohio. And that show, Mountain Monsters, do you ever watch that?
I watched it one time.
Those guys live probably about a mile away from me. They live right here. So, yeah. But, yeah, I've never went out and hunted Bigfoot, but I do see the accounts that go by, and they have reports of them out in Ritchie County and down in Wirt County and some of the more remote areas. So, I have seen them, but I've never had any myself.
Well, has there been any reports of aggression with these Bigfoots? Because
no. The only thing I can remember, one of the more interesting things, and it's actually not my story. It was I guess his name was Lloyd Pyle. Was that his name? The Bigfoot guy. Anyway, he said that many of the Bigfoot's footprints look very similar to footprints of Neanderthals they have found in the caves of France. So whether they're a type of Neanderthal, but I have friends that have gone out looking for Bigfoot, and they've heard strange things, like it sounds like something's hitting on a log, or they'll hear a very odd, scream that doesn't sound like a bobcat, or it doesn't sound like a noise by a bear or a dog or anything. But I don't know anyone personally that's run into one.
Well, I can tell you I did. And,
oh, really?
Me and a friend of mine who was a medical doctor. He just got done doing his internship. And this is back in the early 2000s. Before he was opening his new practice up in Puyallup, Washington, we used to go out and take pictures. One of my other passions besides broadcasting has always been taking pictures. And, we did the Oregon coast, we did everywhere. And we decided the Canadian Rockies. And we researched this place. It was an old internment camp for World War II. They held Japanese prisoners. We were so naive. We didn't even bring bear spray. You couldn't bring a weapon into Canada, so we had no protection at all. We went down this back road as far as it could go in, and it was really overgrown. I remember that. And then we had to walk in about 2 miles through, woods like you wouldn't believe. Did run across an old cemetery, which was really overgrown. And then we come up to what was left of the internment camp, which was built on the side of a mountain, or next to the side of the mountain, I should say. And there was a creek running, or a small river running between, the internment camp and the side of the mountain, which actually had a silver mine that was there at one time. And my friend goes, "Look over that huge bear." And I swung around and raised my camera up, and I was looking at it through the telephoto lens. And about the same time I looked at it, it turned around and saw us and screamed, like the loudest scream I've ever heard in my life. Now, either this thing was a mutation of some type of creature, I have no idea, but it was no bear, I can tell you that. And it decided to come.
Any flesh on the face? Was it the color of the flesh? Was it flesh colored?
I'm going to be honest with you. This thing was really hairy. It had a humanoid head, not a bear head. Okay,
right.
And the thing came charging after us. So we took off running as fast as we could. And I can tell you this much. I turned around maybe once or twice during that 2 mile run back to the car. And I noticed it was running between 2 legs and 4 legs. 2 legs and 4 legs. And we got back to the car. And it or its mate was about 25 feet away from the car, in the tree line, bending a tree over like a bull. It was just bullying this tree, and it was screaming. And I remember the air, it was burning my throat. It was so pungent, the smell of must, urine, and it hurt to breathe. And I remember getting in the car, and my friend was just opening the car door as I had it in drive and stepping on the pedal. And I almost killed my friend. That's how scared I was. I drugged my friend. And then I stopped and he got in. This thing